Winterfell was quiet, too quiet. The cold air carried whispers of fear as the people tried to go on with their lives, pretending the storm wasn't coming. But Jon Snow, standing on the ramparts, knew better. He had seen the Night King. He had faced death beyond the wall, and he knew they had less time than anyone believed. Jon wasn't alone. Arya had returned home sharper, deadlier than ever. She didn't speak much, but her presence was like a shadow with a blade. Bran, no longer truly Bran at the Three-Eyed Raven, had visions no one else could understand, except maybe Jon. The three of them, different in every way, were now the last hope for the North. It started with a simple conversation. Arya found Jon sharpening Loneclaw. "They don't know what's coming," she said. "I know," Jon replied. "They're too busy waiting for Daenerys. The South, politics. They'll all die if we wait." Jon nodded. "We protect Winterfell now, with or without them." Bran watched them through the godswood trees, his eyes cloudy but full of something ancient. Later that night, he told Jon the truth. The Night King was not days away. He was already in the north, close, too close. "There's a path through the Dreadfort. The dead will come from the east. Quiet, hidden," Bran said in his flat, empty voice. Jon wasted no time. He called a meeting with the few who still trusted him, Sir Davos, Tormund, even Gendry. Arya trained the young fighters, turning blacksmiths and farmers into silent killers. Bran used ravens to track the dead. They had only one goal: protect Winterfell before the army of the dead reached the gates. They sealed the secret tunnels, laid traps in the forest, and built fire trenches. Jon personally rode out with Ghost to scout the land, and every time he returned, his face grew graver. He wasn't waiting for Daenerys. He wasn't trusting the South. Not anymore. Sansa didn't understand at first. "You're risking too much," she told Jon. "Why prepare so soon? We need allies. Winterfell doesn't need politics," Jon said. "It needs to survive," Arya agreed. "Let the lords play their game. We'll play ours." Even though Sansa still thought like a ruler, she couldn't ignore the changes. The walls were reinforced. People were being trained. Fires were lit every night across the fields. Winterfell was slowly becoming more than just a castle. It was becoming a fortress. But with every day, Bran grew more distant. He told Arya one night, "I saw the Night King. He's not just coming for me. He wants to break the world." Jon heard it too, and something shifted in him. A fire lit behind his eyes, not rage, but purpose. "They won't take Winterfell," he said. "Not this time." The three of them met that night in the crypts, beneath the statues of their dead parents. Arya leaned against the wall, her sword needle resting on her lap. Bran sat still, staring ahead as if he was watching something far away. And Jon stood, silent, thinking. "No more waiting," Jon finally said. "No more asking for help. This is our home, and we'll protect it with our lives." None of them knew what the future held. But they knew this. If Winterfell fell, the rest of the world would follow. So they would not let it fall. The night air in Winterfell turned colder, sharper, like the edge of a drawn blade. Jon Snow stood on the highest tower, eyes locked on the distant trees. Every breath he took formed a cloud, but what chilled him wasn't the wind. It was the feeling crawling up his spine. Something was coming. Bran had warned them. The Night King wouldn't attack like a normal army. He wouldn't storm the gates with horns and war cries. No, death would slip in like mist, silent, cold, final. Arya was already in motion. She moved like a ghost through the shadows, checking the outer defenses. She had trained a group of scouts, mostly orphans and younger warriors, no one thought would be useful. She taught them how to move without being seen, how to strike without mercy. "You don't need to be big," she told them. "You just need to be fast and smart." That night, One of the scouts returned with a pale face and trembling hands. "They're here," he whispered. "Dead men. Hundreds. Near the old watchtower. Just standing." Jon didn't hesitate. He called his small war council. Tormund grinned in that wild way of his. Finally. "I was getting bored." "We strike first," Jon said. "We hit them before they reach our gates." Sansa barged in, furious. "This is madness. You want to attack them?" "With what army?" "With the one we trained while the rest of you waited for banners," Arya shot back. "Enough," Jon said sharply. "This isn't about pride. It's about survival." Bran spoke quietly, but everyone fell silent to hear. "If you wait, they'll bring giants next. And then it will be too late." So Jon led the strike. He took the strongest fighters, Tormund, Gendry, even Podrick, and rode out at dawn. The snow fell harder as they neared the watchtower, but Jon could see them. Hundreds of wights, still, waiting like statues. He signaled. Archers released flaming arrows. Fire rained down, but it wasn't enough. The dead moved fast, faster than anyone expected. The battle was chaos. Steel met rotting flesh. Screams filled the air. Jon fought like a man possessed, Lone Claw cutting down anything in front of him. Tormund's axe flew like it was part of his body. Gendry smashed skulls with his warhammer, rage in every swing. But they were outnumbered. Arya, watching from the trees with her scouts, knew what had to be done. She gave the signal. A ring of wildfire hidden in the snow was set alight. Flames exploded around the dead, breaking their ranks. The wights screamed, burning, twisting, falling. But in the smoke, Jon saw something worse. A White Walker on a skeletal horse, watching silently. Its blue eyes locked with Jon's. It didn't attack. It didn't need to. It was a message. Back in Winterfell, Bran trembled. "He knows," he whispered to Samwell Tarly, who stayed behind with him. "The Night King knows what we're doing. And now, he'll change his plan." The group returned to Winterfell bloodied, bruised, but alive. They had won, barely. The dead were pushed back for now. Arya approached Jon, her face smudged with ash and blood. "Next time, they won't send foot soldiers. They'll send something worse." Jon nodded. "Then we prepare." But even he didn't know what was coming. That night, Bran had a vision. One he didn't share with anyone, not even Jon. In it, Winterfell burned. The walls crumbled. The dead flooded the halls. And above it all, the Night King stood in the godswood, touching the heart tree. And Bran was gone. The wind howled through the trees, like it was warning them, like the forest itself knew what was coming. Jon Snow sat in silence beside the fire in the great hall, his eyes fixed on the flames, but seeing something far worse. He had faced death before, but this felt different. The enemy was learning, adapting. The White Walker who watched him at the battle hadn't attacked because it didn't need to. It was studying them. Bran hadn't spoken since the vision. He sat by the heart tree, day and night, his eyes glazed with the weight of knowledge no one else could carry. Sam tried to pull answers from him, but Bran only muttered fragments. "He's inside the walls. He doesn't need to knock." Arya noticed something strange before anyone else. A raven flew into the castle during the night, not one of Bran's. Its feathers were scorched, its eyes blue. She killed it instantly, but it was too late. That morning, 5 guards were found dead inside the walls. No one heard them scream. No one saw the killer. But their skin was frozen, their eyes wide open in fear. Jon was furious. "How did they get in?" "They didn't," Arya said. "They were already here." Sansa panicked. She wanted to send a raven to Daenerys again, but Jon stopped her. "She won't reach us in time," he said. "If we wait for her, more will die." Arya pulled Jon aside later. "Something's wrong with Bran." Jon frowned. "He's always been different since he became the 3-eyed raven." No, this is worse, she whispered. He's hiding something. Jon didn't want to believe it. But that night, he watched Bran in the godswood, his lips moving, whispering to the heart tree. Jon stepped closer. He couldn't hear the words. They were in a language not meant for humans. Suddenly, Bran's eyes turned pure white, and Jon felt something cold wrap around him. The air changed. The trees stopped moving. The whole world felt frozen. Then Bran spoke. He's not coming. He's already here. Jon stepped back, alarmed. What do you mean? Bran looked at him, not as a brother, but as something else entirely. I marked him once, when I touched the past. Now he touches the present. The Night King sees through me. Jon's heart sank. You brought him here? Bran didn't answer. He just stared. Arya peered behind Jon, sword already in hand. We need to move him. Now he's a risk. But Jon couldn't do it. Not yet. He's still Bran. No, Arya said. He stopped being Bran a long time ago. That night, chaos broke out. A section of the northern wall collapsed, not from attack, but from inside. One of the guards had turned. He wasn't dead, just wrong. Like something had possessed him. He smiled as he stabbed 2 of his brothers. Smiled as he fell into fire laughing. It wasn't war anymore. It was infiltration. Jon made a decision. Evacuate the children. Everyone who can't fight. We hold Winterfell with whoever's left. Sansa argued. We'll lose morale. They'll think we're surrendering. We're not, he growled. We're surviving. Meanwhile, Bran finally confessed everything. The Night King doesn't want to kill me. He wants to become me. The three-eyed raven sees the past, present, and future. If he takes me, he will rewrite everything. Jon felt sick. Rewrite? Bran nodded. He could unmake time, unwrite the history of men. And suddenly Jon understood the real war wasn't for Winterfell. It was for reality itself. Arya stood next to them both. Then we stop him before he gets to you. Jon looked at her. How? She smiled. We take the fight to him. And just like that, the 3 of them knew the battle had changed. They couldn't just defend Winterfell anymore. They had to hunt the Night King before he took everything. The mood in Winterfell turned darker than the sky above it. Every corner whispered of death. The people had started to feel it, not just fear, but something worse, doubt. If the Night King could get inside without breaking a gate, what hope did they have? Jon Snow gathered what was left of his war council in the hall. The long table between them was littered with maps, blackened by candle wax and stained with blood from earlier battles. Arya stood to one side, arms crossed, her face expressionless. Bran sat still as ever, watching nothing and everything. We're leaving, Jon said firmly. Silence. Then Sansa nearly screamed. Leaving? You want to abandon Winterfell? We're not abandoning it, Jon replied. We're going to find the Night King before he finds Bran. We're going to kill him. You don't know where he is. Bran interrupted softly. I do. Everyone looked to him. He's near the ruins of the last hearth. He waits for us to run. But if we go to him first, while he gathers strength, we might have a chance. Tormund smacked the table. A suicide mission, then. A necessary one, Jon said. If he takes Bran, it's over. Not just Winterfell. Everything. Arya leaned in. Then we don't miss. They picked a team. Small, quiet, deadly. Arya, Jon, Tormund, Gendry, Podrick, and 3 of Arya's Ghost Scouts. Sam insisted on coming too. If something happens to Bran, I need to know how to stop him. No, Jon told him. If something happens to me, you'll still be needed here. Sansa watched them prepare with clenched fists and glassy eyes. You're all going to die out there. Jon didn't reply. He simply said, keep the fires lit. They left at dawn. The cold hit harder the farther they rode. Snow whipped their faces. The wind screamed. Even the horses moved slow, sensing the danger ahead. As they neared the ruined last hearth, the world seemed dead, frozen, silent, waiting. And then they saw them, a circle of whites, standing like statues. In the center, a frozen weirwood tree, and beneath it, the Night King. He wasn't moving. He was waiting. Jon held up his hand. No one attacks until I say, but Arya was already gone. She moved like smoke, vanishing between trees, blades in hand. Tormund and Gendry spread out. Jon approached slowly, lone claw drawn. Then the Night King turned. His blue eyes burned brighter than ice. He didn't speak. He just raised one hand, and the dead came alive. The whites charged, screaming without voices. Gendry swung his hammer. Tormund roared like a wild beast. Podrick held his ground. Jon clashed with a white walker, sparks flying from every blow. Arya was the only one who reached the tree. She ran straight at the Night King, leaping, blade aimed at his neck, but he caught her mid-air. He didn't kill her. He stared into her eyes, and suddenly she was somewhere else. A dark void. No light, no sound, just his voice. "You don't belong here," Arya gasped, struggling. "You're a shadow pretending to be a wolf," the Night King said. "I've seen your death. It was meaningless." Then he let go. She fell backward, crashing into the snow, dazed. Gendry dragged her out just in time as Jon faced the Night King alone. Their swords clashed once, ice against Valyrian steel. The shockwave knocked snow from the trees. Jon swung again, but the Night King vanished. He didn't retreat. He disappeared like mist, and then the dead stopped moving. The group stood, bloodied and breathing hard. "He's testing us," Jon said. He wanted to see how close we'd get. Arya stared at her hand, which was trembling, not from cold, but from fear. "He saw me," she whispered. "He saw everything." Jon looked at Bran's carved image on a piece of wood Arya dropped, the symbol the Night King left behind. "He's not running," Jon said. Tormund wiped blood from his face. "Then what's he doing?" Jon looked toward the distant silhouette of Winterfell. "He's circling back." Arya's eyes widened. "He's going after Bran. Right now." The storm hit Winterfell before the ravens could fly. Sansa stood at the top of the battlements, wind clawing at her hair, eyes locked on the horizon. The snow came heavy, but through it she saw the flickering shape of something impossible. A dragon, but not Daenerys's. This one was dead. Wings torn, fire turned to frost, eyes glowing with blue flame. Viserion, Bran, sitting in the godswood beneath the harp tree, opened his eyes and whispered one word. "He's here." The Night King had outplayed them all. While Jon and Arya hunted him in the north, he slipped past, silent as death, and now circled back to take Bran. Not in battle, not in war, but in silence, through deception, through fear. The first breach came from below. A hidden crypt tunnel burst open with shrieks. The dead had tunneled under the castle walls. They weren't climbing. They were digging. The crypts, once thought to be the safest place, became a tomb again. Screams echoed through the halls. Children, elders, the injured. They were all trapped as the long-dead kings and queens of Winterfell rose from their stone graves. Sansa ran with a small guard, cutting down whites as she went. Her dress torn, hair wet, but her will sharp as ever. She didn't think of pride now. She thought of survival. And she thought of Bran. At the same time, far from Winterfell, Jon's group galloped through the storm, hooves pounding against snow and ice. Jon urged his horse forward, faster than ever before. "He's going to kill Bran," he shouted. Arya rode beside him, face hard. "No, he's going to become Bran." When they reached the outer edge of the forest, they saw it. Winterfell under siege. Fire trenches burned high. Arrows flew, but the dead didn't stop. And above it all, Viserion circled, like a ghost made of fire and hate. "We go in now," Jon commanded. Tormund grinned. "Thought you'd never ask." Back in the Godswood, Bran waited. He didn't flinch as the cold wrapped around him. He could feel the Night King getting closer, feel his presence in the roots of the tree, in the snow under his feet. The air itself seemed to freeze. He whispered to the ravens. Dozens flew up, swirling into the sky. Then the wind stopped, and the Night King stepped through the trees. He wasn't in a rush. He never was. He walked slowly, every step bringing death with it. The heart tree's red leaves shriveled. The snow beneath him turned to frostglass. Bran looked up at him, not with fear, but with a strange kind of calm. "You were never meant to win," Bran said quietly. The Night King tilted his head, curious. "I saw what you are." "You're not just death," Bran whispered. "You're memory. A shadow of an old world that refuses to die." The Night King raised his hand. But before he could strike, a blade flew. Needle. Arya launched from the shadows again, but this time from above. She'd climbed the tree while the Night King walked in, but he turned just in time. Her blade struck his shoulder, sliding off. No effect. He grabbed her throat, choked her, and then something strange happened. Bran smiled. Arya dropped something into her other hand, a blade made of dragonglass. She drove it into the Night King's side. He didn't die. He laughed. The dragonglass cracked and fell from his body like ash. "He changed," Bran said in horror. "He's evolved." Arya gasped for air as the Night King threw her aside. She hit the snow hard, struggling to breathe. And then the skies roared. Jon Snow crashed through the gates on horseback, Longclaw already in his hand. Behind him came Gendry, Tormund, Podrick, and Sam. The Night King turned slowly, facing Jon. It was happening. The real fight. Jon dismounted, sword drawn, walking toward him. "Come on," he whispered. "Just me and you. No tricks. No more running." The Night King stepped forward, and Winterfell held its breath. The Godswood was silent, like the entire world had stopped breathing. Jon Snow stood just a few feet from the Night King, Longclaw clutched tightly in his hands, steam rising from his breath in the icy air. Every part of him ached, from the ride, from the battles, from years of carrying the weight of too many deaths. But nothing weighed heavier than this moment. Across the snow, the Night King didn't rush. He didn't even raise his weapon yet. He just stared at Jon with those piercing blue eyes, empty, eternal, merciless. Bran sat still under the heart tree, watching with that strange calm, as if time didn't matter to him anymore. Arya, blood running from her forehead, crawled back toward the tree, her breathing shallow. She wasn't done yet. She never was. Jon took the first step, then another, and the Night King moved, fast. He raised his arm and sent a wave of ice crashing across the ground. Jon leapt aside, barely avoiding being frozen where he stood. The blast carved deep into the roots of the tree, missing Bran by inches. Longclaw met the Night King's blade, a sword of ice that howled like a storm. The clash sent shockwaves through the forest. Jon struck with everything he had, years of training, pain, loss, rage. But the Night King parried each blow with inhuman ease, countering with silent fury. Every strike he delivered was cold enough to numb the skin. Jon's strength began to waver. Arya tried to rise again, gripping her dragonglass dagger, but her legs wouldn't work. Gendry and Tormund fought outside the Godswood, holding back the dead, trying to pour in through the broken trench lines. Sam, barely holding a sword properly, shouted warnings, swinging wildly at anything that moved. Then Bran whispered something no one heard, and his eyes rolled back. He warged, but not into ravens this time. Into Jon, just for a second. One single moment. Bran reached into Jon's mind, and everything changed. Jon's grip tightened. His speed surged. His eyes flickered with a light not his own. The next swing struck the Night King's blade so hard it cracked. The Night King stepped back for the first time. Surprised, Jon lunged again, faster, more focused. This wasn't just Jon Snow anymore. This was Jon with the vision of every Stark before him, the strength of every fallen brother in the Night's Watch, the fire of the blood he never asked for, Targaryen. But even with that power, it wasn't enough. The Night King dropped his sword and raised both arms. A wall of the dead broke through the trees, whites clawing, crawling, sprinting toward the godswood. Arya screamed, "No!" And then, fire, from the sky. A second dragon descended. Dragon, Daenerys had arrived. She'd flown through the storm alone, driven by Bran's raven, the only warning that reached her in time. Dragon unleashed a river of fire, incinerating the charging whites and forcing the Night King back. But he didn't burn. He stepped through the flames, untouched. Jon stared at Dany, her hair soaked, her face frozen with shock. "He won't die by fire," Jon shouted, "only by steel." The right steel. Arya remembered something Bran once told her long ago. A whisper, buried in her memory. The cold remembers, but the tree never forgets. She turned to the heart tree. Its ancient roots were glowing faintly now. Something hidden? Arya crawled to the base and pulled. Out came a blade older than Winterfell itself, forged in the first men's time, half covered in moss and ancient markings. A blade made of obsidian and weirwood. Bran opened his eyes. Now, Arya threw the blade with all her might. It spun through the air. The Night King turned too late. The blade sank into his chest, and for the first time he screamed. The sound shattered the sky. His body cracked, light spilling from the wounds. He tried to reach for Bran one last time, but he turned to ice, then to dust. The army outside collapsed. The dead dropped instantly, lifeless. Silence returned to the godswood. Jon dropped to his knees. Arya collapsed beside him. Bran finally exhaled. Daenerys stepped into the trees, eyes wide. "Is it over?" she asked. Jon didn't answer. He looked down at the pile of frost where the Night King once stood, and he wondered, what did we just stop from being born? Winterfell stood still. No more screams, no more clashing steel, no more undead. Just the wind, soft again, like the world exhaled after holding its breath too long. Snow fell gently now, not in fury, but in mourning. The Night King was gone. But peace didn't return. Not yet. Jon Snow sat in the godswood, blood soaking through his furs, face blank. Arya stood beside Bran, silent, one hand still shaking from the throw that ended the war. The ancient blade lay beside the heart tree, now blackened at the hilt, as if what it had killed left a stain on it forever. Daenerys stared at the spot where the Night King vanished. Her face wasn't relieved. It was confused. "This was your battle," she said quietly to Jon. "Not mine." Jon didn't respond. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You didn't need me to win this." He looked up. It wasn't about winning. It was about surviving. Her jaw tightened. "And now what?" "I brought a dragon, risked my life, and you still won without me." Arya turned to her sharply. "People are dead. Don't make this about you." Daenerys looked at Arya like she was a threat, not a hero. But it was Sansa who broke the moment. She entered the godswood with eyes red from crying. "The crypts, they're gone. Half the families are dead." She didn't cry as she said it. She was past crying. Jon stood. "We saved the realm." Sansa looked at him. "And lost a piece of ourselves." Bran spoke next, soft, distant. "The Night King is gone, but what he touched will never leave." Everyone looked at him. Arya asked, "What do you mean?" "He changed the magic of this world. His death didn't erase the damage. It froze it in time." Bran turned toward Jon, his expression unreadable. He left something in you. Jon's face hardened. What are you talking about? When I warged into you? I felt him. He felt you. He marked you. Arya took a step forward. You're saying Jon's? No, Bran cut in. Not undead, but not untouched. Jon stepped back, shaken. So what am I now? Bran looked at him with sad, ancient eyes. A reminder that winter never really ends. Outside the Godswood, people began gathering. Survivors, bloodied and burned, looked to the heroes who had saved them. But whispers started already about Jon, about Arya, about how Bran didn't fight, but somehow controlled the winds. About the dragon who didn't burn the Night King, about why Daenerys came late. And soon, those whispers turned into fear. They think you're cursed, Gendry told Arya that night. They think we brought death, Podrick added. Arya just stared at the fire. We are death to people like them. We do what they never could. That's why they hate us. Jon stood alone on the wall later, looking out at the woods. Ghost sat beside him. For the first time, Jon didn't pet him. I don't know what I am anymore, Ghost, he whispered. Behind him, Daenerys approached. The North will never follow me now, she said bitterly. You've stolen their hearts. Jon didn't turn. I never wanted them, but they want you. Her voice was cold now. And they'll follow you, even if it kills them. He finally turned to her. If you can't rule without fear, you don't deserve to rule. Her eyes narrowed. Then maybe the wrong king was raised from the dead. The tension between them crackled, worse than any battlefield. That night, a funeral was held. Dozens of pyres burned. Friends, brothers, strangers. As flames rose, Bran sat alone. Arya stood behind him, sword strapped to her back. You knew what this would cost, she said. Bran nodded. I didn't see victory, only choices. And now? Bran's eyes turned white again, just for a moment. Then he said something that chilled her more than the Night King ever did. Another shadow moves in the east, one colder than death, but wrapped in fire. Arya stepped back. You mean he didn't answer? And far away, beyond the lands of Westeros, across the seas, a crack split the ice deep beneath the world. Something stirred. Winter was gone, but the fire was just beginning.